Oh, the meeting is streamed on YouTube. Neat. I didn't know that was possible.
Hi, Rosie.
Hi.
It's good to hear you.
I wasn't supposed to log into this one.
Not until we do the talk afterwards. So after the screening is over, then, so do you have the link? Because it is a different link for the pre-show talk and for the screening of the film itself.
When I went to that link, I didn't see a video.
See how it says the ZOOMpresario premieres in 44 minutes? I'll put it in the link on the YouTube.
Right, I see 44 minutes. So does that mean I would miss the 7 p.m. discussion?
So the 7 p.m. will be on the other link that was sent in the email, and that goes directly to the Opera Del West YouTube page, and it should be live now, actually.
Yeah, I went to the Opera Del West YouTube links, and I just see like the homepage of Opera Del West, and it says uploads. There's one upload, and it says 7:30. Starts at 7:30.
You don't see the live one happening right now?
Actually, when I went to videos, yeah.
So that's where the talk will be.
I got it. I do see it now. Thank you. So sorry to take up your time. I'm sure my family's going to ask me the same thing. Thank you so much.
Not at all. It is a little confusing. We tried to streamline it as much as we could, but enjoy the talk, enjoy the screening, and come back to this. So we want for you to come back to this Zoom as soon as the screening is finished.
Thank you.
Okay. See you then.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hello, Dan. It's lovely to see you. And hello, everyone who's watching. My name is Brenda Huggins, and I am a stage director and the video director for this evening's performance of the ZOOMpresario. And on behalf of Opera del West, I'd like to welcome you to our online experiment. And so as we begin, I know we just kind of jumped right in here. As everyone, let me just check with Dan and Eve to make sure you're all set to start our pre-show talk. All set, everyone? Okay, so
Yep.
with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce Eve Budnick, who is the artistic director of Opera del West and the music director for the ZOOMpresario, as well as the pianist for the performance. Also, we have Dan Shore, who is a composer and librettist and who created a very special quarren text for transforming Mozart's Impresario into the ZOOMpresario project that you'll see starting at about 7:30. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Brenda. I'm a stage director. And so let's get our talk started by Eve. What brought you to develop this crazy project?
Okay, well, it's a bit of a story. It takes place over the last 6 months. So first of all, I'd like to start by thanking all of you for joining us on this new adventure. We hope you enjoy the new art form that we've made for you. I'm really excited to show it. This work started out as our traditional end of winter opera. In this case, 2 one-act operas. The first one that I picked out was going to be a New England premiere of Pepito, which I hope we can present to you in the very near future. It's the story of a dog who wants to be adopted and the couple who considers adopting him. The show that I chose to pair with this was The Impresario. And in February, we started rehearsals for both of these shows. And it was lovely. We were having a great time. We were rehearsing with the cast. It was such a great cast. And it was very nice to be able to work with Brenda Huggins again. She has worked with us on numerous shows, larger and smaller shows, including The Marriage of Figaro and The Seagull. Recently, we did a small show called The Clever Artifice of Harriet and Margaret. And she was living down in New York, and then she moved back up to Boston. So we had a chance to work together again, which was very exciting. Rehearsals were going fine until we got to the beginning of March. And then, of course, everything shut down. So we tried delaying the performance at first. And then after a period of time, it became obvious that we wouldn't be able to do this for a long time. So at that point, I just figured, well, we'll just wait it out, see what we can do later on. And during that time, Brenda and I are members of a group called the Boston Opera Alliance that meets every couple of months to help promote and support Boston area opera companies. But with the pandemic in full swing, we started meeting every 2 weeks because we really needed to see each other and feel better about the fact that in the future we might be able to create opera again. So during these meetings, we would often commiserate and figure out what we could do in the future. And during one of these meetings in May, there was some discussion of how we might have to do auditions and rehearsals virtually in the future. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that this show could be done with that in mind. And I don't know what we talked about for the rest of that meeting, but some pretty crazy ideas were going through my head. And as soon as the meeting was over, I started thinking through how this might be possible. And the only way I could see we could do this is if we had Dan write us a new text, new dialogue, and new words to a couple of the songs so that it would actually feel like right now what we're going through. So by the end of the day, I had come up with a name for it, the ZOOMpresario. And I contacted Dan, and I think I said something like, is this way too crazy? And at that point, I think he said something like, well, it is crazy, but I'm willing to do it with you. And I contacted Brenda. I said, are you willing to switch from being a stage director to a movie director? And she said, sure, let's give it a try. Contacted the cast members who were so willing to do something that they had never done before. Anyway, Dan started writing this new dialogue, and Dan and I have known each other for 20 years. We were both at grad school at NEC together, and I just had the feeling he could create something really hilarious, and I think you'll see that's the case. So the cast did such a good job of jumping into brand new roles. So not only did they become movie stars, but they became cameramen and audio engineers and set and costume designers and computer geeks. And I was just amazed at how quickly they adjusted to this new way of creating opera. And I really thank them for their work. Brenda also did a great job of moving the singers around on the screen to make it feel like we were in on a Zoom meeting. I think you'll feel all of the fun of watching the Zoom meeting without actually having to do any work. So the next thing I'd love for you to hear about is a description of how Dan was able to rewrite the script in the time of COVID. And I should mention the fact that I think Dan is currently on the dark side of the moon. So when he starts to talk, you may or may not see his lips moving, but I'm hoping that you can hear him, and I hope that he can give us a nice sense of how he went through this process of creating dialogue and new text for this very old opera.
Yes, thanks, Eve. Yes, it's true. I am deep in hiding in my quarantine bunker in the wilds of rural Virginia. We are in the middle of nowhere. We are near nothing, and we have like a couple of toothpicks and some aluminum foil outside that are picking up some sort of magical satellite signal that hopefully is making this work. If not, Brendan, you could continue the rest of this without me. I should stress, Eve kind of hinted at it, but I should stress that this is an absolutely insane idea born of complete and utter desperation. And absolutely none of us had any idea what we were doing while we were doing it. And we are kind of interested in seeing what happens when the show starts in 23 minutes, and if it works or not. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. The Impresario, if you're an opera singer, you're probably very familiar with this piece. It's a short opera from 1786. If you're not an opera singer, you may not have seen it before, but you've probably seen the movie Amadeus, where Mozart has this evil rival Salieri. And a lot of that rivalry kind of came to a head in February 1786, where the emperor asked both of them to write two backstage operas, and they would be performed back to back. First, you would see Mozart's backstage opera, and then you would see Salieri's backstage opera. So the whole idea of the Impresario is about someone who is trying to put together a production, which is why when we were having so much trouble doing this, and we thought, what do? We can't have rehearsals, we can't have performances, everything's over Zoom, nobody knows how to use the computer. As soon as you spun this idea to me, I thought, oh, well, so we are actually going through the exact same problems that the characters in the Impresario are going through. How do we put a production together? How do we figure out how to cast this? How do we present ourselves in the best way? And then we just started noticing all of the other problems that we have. How do we get the cameras to work? How do we get the music to sync up? should Eve pre-record piano music and then send it to people? How do you best dress for an audition that's going to be in your bedroom, in front of a camera microphone? So we just try to put all of those things into the script. So in a way, I mean, it's an old-fashioned comic story from 1786, but another way, it's an extremely modern, realistic depiction of what we're all going through, which hopefully will be entertaining in some way. Yeah, no promises, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We absolutely have fantastic singers, and one of the things that was very challenging for me is I don't know anything about computers. I'm not a film writer. I'm not a TV writer. I'm used to working for the stage, and I know how to work with live singers on stage. And one of the things that was so difficult for me was, how do you write for people when they're not on a stage, when they're on the screen? And we actually made a whole bunch of changes in the libretto after we had our first on-screen Zoom meeting reading. And I thought, wow, well, that's terrible. And that line wasn't funny at all. And she doesn't like that bit. We're going to cut that. And why is the opening scene 72 minutes long? So all kinds of things that we didn't notice until we actually saw them on the screen. Which kind of brings me to one of the questions that I would love to ask Brenda. Brenda, I have known for, I think it's actually 10 years. So, I mean, maybe not as long as the 20 years that I've known you, but I have known Brenda for 10 years. She is a fantastic teacher. She's a fantastic person who works in education programs. She's a fantastic director. She's maybe the best puppeteer on the planet. But as far as I know, she does not have a lot of experience doing film direction or television directing. And Brenda, I'm really interested in hearing from you. What are the different kinds of things that you had to do in working with this cast, and then figuring out how to put all those things together? Because normally when you stage an opera, they just perform it start to finish and it's done. But this was done in about 85,000 takes that were then painstakingly edited together for hours and hours and hours by Larry Budnick, who is not on the screen, but is very much a part of this process. He's hiding in the background, pressing buttons somewhere.
Yes, very much thank you to Larry for late night efforts of back and forth edits to get everything as streamlined as we could. So this question of how I, as a stage director, dive into this project of creating I even hesitate to call it a film, because I mean, everyone is filming from inside of their own homes. So even if I was this incredibly experienced film director, I think we would find the same new challenges in this project through the quarantine. I mean, if you look at Hollywood or TV, all of their productions have been postponed because they have to keep their crews safe. So what I did do is think about, what are the tools I have, what are the skills that I have that I can bring to the table in order to see this project through. And this was really difficult coming from a place of feeling just the most uninspired, uncreative as I possibly have ever felt, due to the worldwide pandemic that's going on right now. You know, there's a lot of question marks for artists as we are desperately trying to find new platforms to share our art and share our stories, very similar to the characters in the story that you'll see. And so one of the approaches that I use in my stage directing for theater is very much centered in collaboration and developing a sense of organic storytelling. And so I tried to achieve that as best I could within this filming process. And especially because the cast were filming in their own homes, they only had the materials at their home to work with. So whatever ideas I came up with really had to be inspired from what they had around them, whether it was certain objects that they were interacting with. And when you see the piece, Eve, Eve always teases me about how there's always Brenda's directing. There must be a puppet in the opera, and usually there is. And the objects in that you will see in the ZOOMpresario may or may not be puppets. You can decide that, and we can talk a little bit more about that in the talk with the cast afterwards. But that's really how I approached this, bringing the skills that I had from theater and putting them into this very strange social distance environment, while also really again, like I said, centering in that collaboration, but recognizing that even though we're losing some of the magic of the theater, some of the conventions that you can do when you're in a space with people, we're gaining some magic of the film. So each art form has its own magic. And so there are certain techniques and things that we could do, like the overture, as an example, the different pieces that we clip together during the overture. It was something that can only be done in film. So that was really my challenge. How do I use my skills and approaches from theater to create an organic storytelling while also utilizing these new aspects of film that can really create a magical storytelling. So it looks like we have maybe about 5 more minutes before we want to direct the audience to go to the other link to view the premiere of the ZOOMpresario. So right now you're watching on the Opera del West live stream. And then right at 7:30, which is in about 15 minutes, there, click on to the link that has the film of the premiere itself. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat again. I don't believe that YouTube, you can actually like click the link. You might have to copy and paste it into your URL, or you could go to the Opera del West YouTube page and it'll be there as well. So right at 7:30, we'll start that premiere and then come back here to our live stream for a really fun talk back with the cast. All 4 of our cast members are going to join us, and I can't wait to talk with them about what their process was, because, you know, for me, having 4 hours of rehearsal in one day on the computer was really hard. I know Zoom fatigue is something that everyone's been talking about. And so that's for me, sitting and watching, because that's what directors do, they watch. And I didn't have the chance to be as interactive with the cast because I'm at home behind my computer screen. So I'm really curious to talk with them about their process and what that was like for them. Is there anything that you would like to add, Eve, about that you want the audience to know before they go into this very exciting project that starts now in, well, I guess there's a delay in the YouTube. So whatever time I say, it's going to be off by a couple minutes. So right at 7:30.
Yeah, so I just want to say that we want the audience to be part of the process. So when we come back to this spot and we have the cast in front of us, we want you to send us questions you might have for us or for the cast members, or any very nice comments that you have, we will accept. And we're excited to see which of our friends are watching, and please say hi. I think the only other thing to mention is when you go to see the premiere, you can go there on the early side and it will just count down. So you might want to get on there 3 minutes before and go get yourself a nice drink, come back, and it will count down to the premiere at 7:30.
And so just keep refreshing. If you find that you're not able to connect with the video, just keep refreshing your browser until it pops up. I can't wait for you to see it. And I guess we'll see you after the show here.
Enjoy the show.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, enjoy the show.
Oh, shit. Okay, I got that.
Let's go. Thanks, Darren. Hey,
Great job, guys.
nice work. Good job. Make sure I see all of you. Perfect.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, now it's like playing them both with the
Yeah.
delay.
I'm shiny. You guys hear me?
Yes, hi everyone. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Brenda.
Oh, let me put my headphones back in. I might be able to. It's so fun to like see the inside of your home again. It's, you know. Beautiful.
I do.
So this was the first time plugged in here. This was the first time that the cast saw
Mute
the whole thing put together. So what do you think? What did you think? Did anything surprise you?
I think it looked great. I was very excited to watch it.
No, it was fabulous. So much fun to hear everybody together because we have not heard each other since our 1 or 2 rehearsals that we actually got to have. So I was so happy to be able to, it was great.
Yeah, to hear everything come together.
Yeah, it came out really beautifully.
We'll talk a
I was
little bit
impressed.
more about that as soon as we have Eve and Dan join us here. Away, and then we'll take some Q&A from the audience. So let's go back to this live stream here. Wonderful. Okay. Amazing job. Thank you. Loved it. This was fabulous. Great music, everyone. Thank you. From Susan, super. You must all have had so much fun. So since we have a few people here and we're still waiting for Eve, what was the most fun part about what we did? Like, when was a moment that was just off the rocker, just hilarious? Because there were some moments.
I was a big fan of the trio.
The trio was good.
Pretty wild.
The trio was really good.
Yeah, and kind of going off that, anytime that we were all together when we got to rehearse and plan out the dialogue scenes, I always had so much fun because we could see each other. And then with the trio, we had planned it all out in advance, of course. And then when it was put together again, we're like, oh yeah, that's what we were doing. That's what it looks like, And so it really is quite funny.
That is something that's so fun about this style of opera. And in our pre-show talk, Dan was talking about that battle between Mozart and Salieri. And so you had the German style of opera, the Singspiel, where you have the spoken words and the singing, which we saw tonight. And then the Salieri version composition was an Italian style, so it was all fully sung through. Do you know, Dan, which version won the contest?
I do, and you'll be very sorry to know that Salieri version won hands down.
Yeah.
It was extraordinarily successful.
Wow.
Well, but do you remember, does anyone know the title of
You
it
know
or how
why?
they performed it?
Probably because he didn't write the tenor part high enough.
There you go, Joel. There wasn't a high enough tenor.
That's why. Yeah, probably destroyed his chances of winning.
So we heard from Theo and Aurora. Joel, what was the most fun part for you in this process?
Wait, after viewing it or while working on it?
While working on it.
The most fun. I would say I loved recording and different takes. That was really, really cool because you never get that experience in the rehearsal process. You just work from one section to another, and then you move on, and then you probably never really come back to that section like multiple times in the rehearsal process, which I thought was really, really, really fun to do. Improving each time that you do it, learning the aspect of using recording equipment, your video, all that going on. I learned so much from this experience. Now I'll know what to do the next time that if I ever have to take on a recording project like this again. Really
I wondered if I could just mention, based on what you were just saying, Joel, one of the harder things about it is if we did multiple takes at different times of day, or looking at what's behind you right now, Joel, making sure that the music was open to the right page, and your, whatever's hanging up on your wall isn't tilted the second time.
Yep.
So
staying unshaven for the whole process, not being able to change certain nose jewelry, always having my hair combed and in a ponytail in the same way. That was difficult. Yeah. Now it kind of gave me an experience of what it was to work on set, like in Hollywood or something.
Right.
It was cool.
I think that the funniest thing was trying to remember which side you had your pencil on, because you had to stick it in the right ear.
That was really difficult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was quite difficult, like you said, because even as singers, we're used to making videos for auditions, for recordings in that way, but it's never the thing where we're going to be doing this for multiple days at a time. So having to really be so consistent with the consistency in all of the videos was tough, and something we don't normally have to think about.
Absolutely.
So
I enjoyed it a lot. There was one question from the other side of the video screen here was asking about the editing process, because it says the video editing was credited. That was Larry, Eve's husband. And Eve, do you want to talk a little bit about the editing process, since you were there alongside the whole way?
Right. Well, it's certainly a brand new thing for us, and took a good amount of time. We were looking for just the right platform software. Everything needed to be just right. And, we tried a couple of things that didn't work so well. But, trying to line up the audio and the video, and we discovered the fact that when you see a movie being made and they do the clapper, and we never did that. If we had, it would have made it a whole lot easier to put the audio and the video together. But now we know.
Wow.
But yeah, there were some late nights, definitely. And, just making sure that everybody got the takes that they wanted and the takes that worked together well. And, as I was saying, making sure that everything lined up just right. So yeah, it was a long, slow process, but, looking at it tonight, it really felt like it was worth it.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And Larry also did the recording, the Zoom recording. So each of we had a different process of recording for each performer, where sometimes Larry would record through the Zoom, and sometimes like Aurora and Theo, when you were recording your music, you did it yourself and then send it. So we'd have these lengthy rehearsals, and then you'd do it, and then we'd have to give notes, and then you do it again. It's such a long process. But it was so fun when we were recording with Larry, and I could hear him in the back room laughing when we would go through the takes, and then I knew that we were on to something.
Nice.
Okay, so I do have a question here from the audience. This is from Evan, who writes, sorry for the especially dorky question, but I mean, we're classical musicians.
We love
like
them.
dorky questions. But where were your earbuds actually your microphones? And I think that might be a different answer for each person. So Aurora, why don't you start? Talk a little bit about your microphone and earbud setup.
My earbuds were not my microphone. I had an external microphone hooked into my computer. So I was recording the audio through my computer and listening to it through an old iPhone and then recording the video with my new iPhone. So many devices, but it was great to have an external mic to really capture the sound. So that was one of the most important things to make sure that we had, or at least for me. And yeah, that's what I did.
Thanks. Joel, what was your setup?
Judging from what the ladies sound excellent. It simulated like a concert hall. So I mean, when I was listening to it just now on my big screen, I couldn't believe it. Now I will definitely invest into getting an external mic because all I used was my iPad for Larry to record my video, and I just used my cell. I just propped it right here on my nightstand, and that's what did it. But now I think I will definitely probably invest in an external mic. But I mean, I was so thrilled and happy with the with everything. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing how when we were doing the takes, we were recording the video on one device and then the audio on another device, because Larry also did all of the audio editing, putting the different layers of voices together. So Eve, could you we'll come back to Theo and your tech setup, but Eve, can you talk about the music recording process and the layering of tracks?
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, I was recording my part, the piano part. I would then send it on to the singers who would listen to it, and then we would sort of talk through, well, this section I like to slow down a little bit, this section I speed up. Can we set the starting tempo differently or dynamics? And then slowly I would create more piano tracks until we had the perfect track for them. Then they would be listening to it and they would be singing along with it. And Larry had that piano track and then the best take of the vocal track and put that on top. And then when we were doing things like the trio and then the finale, each one had to layer on top. So we recorded, I believe we recorded Rosie first for the finale, and then Joel, and then we added Aurora and Theodora. And each one was listening to a couple of layers. So Rosie was starting, I think, with just piano, and then Joel had Rosie to listen to, and then each one had one extra voice to listen to. And then, you know, Larry had to sort of stack them up and put them all together, and then just make sure the balance was right between them, based on, you know, the fact that different people had different kinds of equipment.
Yeah, you know, that's all, just that.
Just
that. And so we did have a question from Carrie, who asked about how did the singers and accompanists so well in sync across households? So that's really the question we just answered about. We didn't sync across households because Zoom doesn't have the technology to be able to do that. And so that's why so when you saw the two large ensemble numbers, the trio and followed by the finale with the 4 singers at the end, we had to record those all the way through 3 times, like once per person. Like it's not like we just recorded it all together. We had to do takes of every single person individually and then put it together. So the singers were reacting kind of through their imagination. They weren't actually reacting to another person. We had to and that was really one of the biggest challenges for me as the director, is to make really clear choices in collaboration with the performers about what was happening in each moment, so that when we did layer the action on top of each other, it felt like it was all happening simultaneously. And so
I do want to just add one last thing, which is the overture, which looked like it was the same kind of thing. I actually was able to play with my son, who played the clarinet. So that was the one time in the entire show that there was ensemble actually happening. And then a friend of mine, Susan, played the flute on top. So in that case, we only had to add one extra layer. And she listened to the recording of me playing with Ryan, and then she played along with that.
And the overture is the director's cut. That is the only editing that I did, putting together everyone's little shots, because the idea of trying to create a shot list for Larry for 7 different videos in different back and forth just seemed like it would take too much time. So I just did the editing for that, and it was really fun. But back to Theo, what was your tech setup, and is there anything else you want to add about your experience and process? I know you've been doing lots of other online recording projects as well.
So I had a setup that was very similar to Aurora's. I had my little earbud or AirPod, whatever they're called, in my ear, and then I had a Blue Yeti X as my mic that was hooked up to my computer, and then I had a camera that was recording for me. And it's definitely a new experience recording yourself and having the ability to do so many takes. But I really enjoyed it, and I think I grew as an artist doing it, being able to watch myself, so I really enjoyed it.
Great, thank you. So we don't have any questions yet for the audience, so get your questions in there before we peace out. But Dan.
Rosie want to talk about?
Oh yeah, Rosie. Well, I was going to ask Dan. So I was going to ask Dan what he thought of seeing it all together. But then, go ahead, Rosie. To what was your experience? Because you were coming in as a character, kind of separate as the rest. What was that process like?
Oh, I just loved it. I'm very flattered that Dan wrote a special nerd role just for me. I got to wear some of my fun outfits and some of my ridiculous collection of plastic figurines. Got to be in the show. So yeah, I just had fun chewing the scenery, and it's kind of fun to actually use video this way where you can see yourself. So I could kind of see what it would look like if I'm like, "Are you in there, Uncle Joel?" And and this this kind of thing, and how that looks completely different than it might on stage. I just love what some of the other characters were doing. How you interacted with the camera in ridiculous ways that wouldn't be relevant to a stage performance. So yeah, it was great. I had a great time.
Thanks, Rosie. So Dan, what are your thoughts now they've seen it all come together?
Yeah, this is the first time. Today was the first time you got to see it.
Yeah, it's true. Normally I get to see all the rehearsals. I get to turn pages for all the rehearsals. And this was a little crazy because I would see snippets here and there. I was shocked when I got the video of the overture a couple days ago. I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. But yeah, it was very interesting, like having to wait until the last minute for Larry to have put everything together and then send it over. But I mean, luckily, I know you all and love you all dearly, so I knew it was going to be brilliant. But it was very interesting, having to wait until the actual day of the performance to see all those different things come together and see, Joel's video and Theo's video and Aurora's video and Rosie's video finally come together so it makes some sense. So, it's
can I ask
amazing work
a
to all of
question?
you.
Go ahead. Can I ask a question of Dan? Were there any moments that were so completely different from what you pictured when you first wrote it?
A few, but I feel, you and I have already talked through all of them, so I wasn't shocked when I saw it tonight. But I mean, that's the wonderful thing about writing for the stage is that you're always writing and imagining how it could be done. And then you wait for live humans to show up and do it their own way. And that's kind of what's exciting about it. And if we did another video production of the same opera a year from now, we would probably do things differently. And if we did it every single year, we did another video production of the ZOOMpresario, it would be a little different every time. And that's kind of the beauty of live theater. And I think in a way, this is a pre-recorded video, but it's also just a new generation of live theater, and we try to capture that as best as we could.
I mean, that was the goal. It was to create an experience I felt as live as possible. And so all of the scenes, when the music numbers were all recorded separately, but when the dialogue was happening, that was all recorded together in the room. And so we did have to deal with the latency issues while we were recording the scenes. And so I know Joel, as an example, sometimes, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you have to deal with the latency issues to get the timing right for the scenes when you were speaking the dialogue?
Yeah, every time it was a little bit different, but once you got into a rhythm, because I knew that my iPad responded the latest, so I had the biggest delay. So I knew that as soon I could feel the cadence of when my sopranos and my mezzo, when their dialogue was ending, I just knew exactly when to jump in. So you just kind of got used to listening to keywords and then knowing to come in with yours. So that was a little difficult when we rehearsed, but as we got to the recording process, it was easy. It was almost like you were on counter clockwork doing it. I didn't find it to be hard. I guess always keeping it from rehearsing to recording, keeping it fresh, keeping it alive. I would notice that my first take my second take would be a little bit more spirited after I would get advice from our director, Brenda. So just that is interesting and unique, keeping the same energy and intention and focus while you're recording two different takes. That's what I would say.
I see you nodding, Theo. Do you want to add something to that?
Oh, well, so since I was recording on my own, I did a little more than 2 takes. So but I think that there definitely, it was like always an energy thing. You needed to make sure that whatever take you decided at the end of the day did have the most amount of energy, because, you know, you're singing to an empty room. So you need to find the energy within yourself every time.
And I do have a question for Aurora, but before we go there, I'd like to read some of the chat here on the YouTube just so the cast can see it, because there's some really nice comments in here. So Evan says, I'm blown away. You'd never done this before. Super impressive. 10 out of 10 would watch again. And then in capital letters, when is the next one? And so the answer to that, Evan, is when we can raise funds to pay artists to make work. So go to that donation button. We would love to keep making art. So we would love to keep accepting your charitable donations and also your support to come see the show. You know, tell people about Opera del West. Will the ZOOMpresario be available on the YouTube page for an amount of time?
Yeah, so it's going to be on until July 23rd. So please, tell your friends, tell your relatives, tell your neighbors, because it'll still be there, and you can, get more people interested in what we do. If you tell them that it's very accessible, it's not very long, it's a great way to get introduced to opera, and there's a lot of ways that people will relate to this because it's now.
So we have Andrew says, we are fans of Isabel figurine, Rosie. Who's Isabel? Is that one of your figurines?
Yeah, so have you guys heard of a game called Animal Crossing?
Oh, right. Yeah,
it's very popular now. I actually don't play it, but my husband does. And he's got the gear. Yeah, thanks, Boris. So yeah, but I actually do collect other plastic figurines myself. And I actually am a nerd in real life. Yeah, so I had fun stacking up my collection there.
When we were doing the overture scenes, and Brenda had a lot to choose from, because we kind of had people record many different ideas, try putting on lipstick, try doing this, trying doing that. And I have to say, Rosie had the longest and most ornate, every figurine was involved, and you saw her eating the popcorn for a while, and it was great.
Thank you. I loved it. Yeah, I've never gotten to stuff my face with popcorn or pretend to play video games in an opera before. And it was just everything I ever wanted, you know. Scenery, you provide scenery, I'll chew the scenery.
There you go.
Well, I
So,
got to bring some of my own
Actually,
scenery this
I'd
time, so that
love to
was
say
fun.
something.
did you want to add something, Dan?
You had Yeah, you had asked me before, Eve, about writing something and then being surprised at how it comes out. And I would say Rosie is a perfect example of someone that I've known for many years. And I know all I have to do is just give her 2 words and she will run with them for miles and miles and miles. And that's it's that kind of thing that keeps me in this business, because I know that you give somebody something to do, and then you say, and you have a couple of weeks to work on it, and then when you come back, there's just craziness.
And so, Aurora, this brings me to my question to you. It's about the objects of the opera. You were the first one in the cast to incorporate an object into your performance, and that was totally inspired by you. That was not a direction from me. So, talk a little bit about your the red hat and the broom.
Well, honestly, I just, you know, the first part of the opera is us actually doing our audition. And so I thought, what am I saying in this aria? What is actually going on? I'm talking about this young thing that I love and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And I just thought, I need that young thing there. And what would I do if I was stuck in my room? And honestly, it's been always one of my dreams to dance with a broom on stage. So I figured if we can make this happen, maybe put a hat on it, personify it a little bit more. And I don't know, it was honestly just something I thought of like that. I make it sound like it was, you know, been years in the making, but not really. It was just something I thought I was inspired to do with the music, with the situation. And I know that you had said it just means a lot now that we're stuck in our houses. We have to create our own scene partners. And so I must say, I didn't think on that extra level of psychology when I decided on that, but it's interesting that it is so relevant at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of my job as the director is to extract those levels and dissect them and talk about them. And I think it's so touching just how it brings the realness and the sadness, I think, of the isolation of each character. Just shows really how isolated each character is. And it makes me think of the approach to comedy in a philosophy of I laugh in order not to cry. That's what I think of when I think of this piece. It's so beautifully hilarious, obviously, because it's written by Dan and you're brilliant and hilarious. But finding those real moments of character work is something that I get really excited about as a director. And so be able to collaborate with the cast in that way, it was really rewarding. Okay, so we have some more chat here I want to share. Okay, from Tom. Thank you for breaking the ice of what's next for us. And I take that to mean as us as an industry for performers. Sharing the hiccups especially. Congrats to Opera del West. Congratulations to all. I loved the really Mozartian reconciliation finale. That's from Kate Cush. Winston Edwards says, hope the pandemic ends soon. Whenever you're performing in Boston, I'll definitely be there. My very first time hearing you all sing, it was fantastic. That's wonderful. And
Love
my
you,
family, yes, Joel's family. And my family from Texas, the Huggins clan, my dad and my sister and my grandmother and other family members from the Dallas area tuned in, and they've never seen any of the opera productions I've directed. I've been directing for 13 years. And so how wonderful to have this. This is the silver lining, right? We had to give up our theaters. We had to give up our time in the same room, breathing the same air, but we get to share our work on a much more broader national level. And then Winston Edwards writes, by the way, Uncle Joel is my nephew. No, by the way, Uncle Joel, that's you. So it's like Uncle Winston and Uncle Joel. Got it.
That's my dad's youngest brother. That's my dad's
Oh, nice. Oh, that's nice.
Does that mean I'm his aunt?
basically, yes.
Or
Yes.
Don't know how that works.
Okay.
Hillary B says, "Hey Joel." Evan says, "We're here for you." More claps from Hillary. Props. It's great to prop it out. So we were talking about the objects. Yes, just how how important the objects were to storytelling. And as a puppetry artist, object theater is a really beautiful style of puppetry, but I personally wouldn't say that what we did was puppetry, because the object themselves didn't breathe and come alive. And the reason why I wanted to approach it that way was to further showcase that isolation. It really is an object. I wanted the audience to see the object as an object.
I want to point out that when we first started working with Theodora on the scene where she brings not a puppet, but a stuffed animal, we got to see this big bunny, and she did the whole scene with the bunny, and then in the end she said she wasn't feeling it with the bunny, so that's why you got to see the teddy bear.
You have to have the right scene partner. You have to have the right scene partner.
You have to find
The bunny was
just
giving
connected
me
more.
Megan also says that the props are an accent when the scenic opportunity is in short supply. So we didn't really change scenes. Each person was in their home and in their room. And then Megan also says, created to create. Yes, I think the need to continue to make things is a really important part of what we do. And Uncle Winston says, yes, you are all my family. Oh, that's very nice.
Aww.
And having this really intimate conversation with all of you, I'm feeling kind of emotional. This is always the hard part of having an artistic family, is we have this very intimate connection for a short period of time. And then we all go off and do our things. And then hopefully in the future, we'll come back together to do something else. But there really is that post-show sorrow to send off our art into the world until the next thing. So
the good news is it's still out there for 3 weeks, which normally it's not. So that's something.
True. That's true. So again, make your donations, send the YouTube link to your friends and family, keep telling people what you think of the show. Thank you all so much for coming to this wonderful talk with the cast and crew. I've already finished my beverage, so I'll just...
Oh, but let's
have a toast.
A toast to the cast. You were amazing. And thank you for sort of pivoting and being able to be a part of this, whatever this was. And thank you to Jan for writing it. And thank you for the chance for me to work with Brenda again.
It's been wonderful. I'm very excited. Until next time. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.